Continuing on with our discussion about sends, I've reset everything right now back to how it was before, no effects channels or anything. I'm just going to quickly redo it so you can see. There's two ways to do this. The first is how I did before. I can create, right-click and create an effects channel, and then I can name this whatever I want, like verb, and I can go into any track, like these drums, and go to my sends and send it to the verb. That's the first way of doing it. Very easy to do. I'm going to undo that. The other way to do it is maybe even simpler. I just go to my send. I don't even have a bus created yet. And I go plus add effects channel. And amazingly, it creates the effects channel for me and it creates the send to that effects channel. Now if I go change the name of the effects, I put verb. A send is created, going to verb. Here is the verb effects channel, which is a bus. It's an effects bus. And almost two steps happened at once. I could select 10 channels simultaneously, go add send, and then it would turn them all to having a send to that channel, and it would make the channel at the same time. So that's a really cool way to do it. I'm going to do it once more so you can see. I'm going to take all my drums, how about, from my chorus drums, verse drums, crash, and percussion, go send, add, effects channel. Here's my effects channel. Let's call it verb. And all the drums have a send on them now, going to the effects channel. Pretty cool. So this is multiple tracks all being sent to one channel. Now if I put the reverb on here, just go to recent and grab it, and like this. Remember, the reverb needs to be at 100% wet. And I have this lock mix turned on. It's turned on by default because I'm using an effects channel. And then I can start going through presets, and it's going to keep the mix at 100%. You see it never changes, to make sure that it always behaves how it should. Being on an effects channel, it should be 100% wet. So having that lock mix allows you to do that. Okay, so right now we got this. I can turn the reverb off if I wanted just by doing this. But there's a better way to control it than moving the fader on the reverb. Because if I move the fader on the reverb and I have a whole bunch of channels all sending to that reverb, then the reverb for all of those channels is going to go down. Maybe you want that sometimes, but what if I say I only want the reverb on the drums, the main drums, to go down, but on all the percussion it should still stay the same? Well, this happens by looking at the controls we have on the actual send here. To simplify things, I'm just going to get rid of these sends, so we're only looking at this one. So when you create a send, we get this little control setup. I'm just going to quickly go through what we're looking at. The main control is this blue little meter here, and this blue thing is how much you're sending. It's the send level. How much volume are you sending in this copy that you're making? So if I turn this all the way 0, I'm not getting any reverb because I'm not sending any amount of signal over there. When I start to turn this up, now you can see you're getting some signal here on the effects track. If I keep going up, so this thing is very important. This is your send level. Once you've created the send and you've put the reverb on it, you just use this to determine exactly, very precisely, how much reverb you want on that track. So I could have these sends on all these tracks and have each one sending a different amount. So maybe the piano has a lot, but the synthesizer has almost none, but you still want a little bit, and the drums have somewhere in the middle. That way I just keep the fader on the effects track, the effects bus here, set at 0. I don't even need to touch it. And I can just change how much each channel is sending with this little blue send level meter. Underneath that, you might not even be able to notice it, there's this tiny little white dot. This is a panning control. So you can actually send a panned version of your sound. I'll show you what I mean. If I play it like this, right now the reverb is right in the middle with everything because I'm sending it right down the middle. But if I pan this to the left, notice the reverb is only on the left side now. That's a really cool sound. Right side. So that's what that does. There's a lot of cool uses for that, and you can probably think of some if you start experimenting with it. I'll reset it. The next thing we see is this little thing. Now, what is this a picture of? On the left, we have a little thing that's supposed to be representing this, which is the fader kind of control. And then on the side is representing the signal itself, or the send itself. This is called pre-fader. So this is something important to know about. If I am playing these drums and I have the reverb on them, if I turn down my fader here, the send gets turned down the same amount that this gets turned down. So if you dial in a perfect amount of reverb, but then you want to turn the drums down, that's great. You can turn them down and the send gets turned down exactly the same amount. So then everything stays balanced. You always have the same amount of reverb on whatever you're using. The other control is, if I click this, now you see the fader's on the right side and the send is on the left side. That means that the send is going out before the fader. That means pre-fader. That's what that means. And it turns yellow, which means that if I turn this down, now I'm hearing pure reverb and the dry signal's totally gone. Put it back. So sometimes in certain cases that you might run into, this is desirable, that you would want to be able to turn down your dry signal, but keep the amount of reverb you're sending constant, no matter where you put that dry signal level. So a lot of these things you'll discover on your own as you start working on music, and you say, I'm trying to turn that thing down, but I kind of want like the dry to fade away, but I want to keep hearing the reverb. How do you do that? So this is how that's done. You can put it on pre-fader, and now the send is sending its copy before the fader does anything. When it's like this, which is called post-fader, that means that as you turn down this knob, the amount of send gets turned down with it perfectly. So those are the main controls. There's this on-off, which of course, now it's not sending at all. Now it is. And then in this menu, we have one other thing that's interesting, which is show destination. And that just highlights where that is. If you have a whole bunch of effects channels and you need to find which one this is, you just go in there and push show destination and it will highlight which channel that is. The other thing in this drop-down menu is remove. So I can just remove the send and now I'm not sending anything anymore. Let's look at another case of what we might do. Instead of using reverb, though, we're going to use delay. Let's take a different sound. How about the piano? I'm going to delete this effects track. So I'm going to come to my piano and say I want my piano to have delay on it. So I come to my sends and I say, okay, I'm going to send to a new effects channel. So here it is. I'll leave it here for now. And I'll call this delay. And then I'm going to insert some kind of delay on here, of course. Like, let's just get a beat delay. And you see, first thing to always check when you're doing this is that your mix is set to 100%. You don't want any dry signal in the send version. You just want to hear the effect itself, pure wet. So if I play this now you can hear the delay. Okay, so that's cool. I mean, that works just the same. I could put as many tracks as I want being sent to the same delay, and I could change how much they're sending with the send level like this. Put it to none. Now it's just dry. Put it up crazy amount. Now it's even louder than the dry signal is. I can change the panning on it. I can turn it off. All the same stuff. Pre-fader, post-fader. That's all the same. So delay is another place where sends get used all the time because you may want multiple instruments to have the same kind of delay on them, maybe at different parts in the song or maybe at the same part. Sometimes you can just create a couple different delays and maybe one that's a certain rhythm and one that's a different rhythm, and then those are the only two you need. So then you don't need to create 10 different delays for all your tracks. You can just send your different tracks to your delay when you need to. And all these things, of course, can be automated. If I just right-click on this send level, I can edit how much I'm sending, and it shows me right here. So I could start with 0, and then over time, I start sending more and more like this. So that's pretty cool. I'm just going to push Command Z, Control Z to get out of that, undo it all. Okay, so that's all well and good. Now, the last thing I want to mention here is the difference between effects channels and buses. You notice that this effects channel has no sends in it. I'm sending to it, but it has no way to send copies of itself. I can change its output, and if I had a different bus somewhere, like if I created a bus over here that was called whatever, I'll just name it here, call it piano bus. I could change my output of my piano to the piano bus, and I could change my output of the delay to the piano bus, and I could control both of them with one fader, just like a normal bus does. But what this can't do is send a copy of itself as a send. Now notice that the bus that I created does have inserts and sends, but the effects channel does not have sends. So sometimes you may get to a point where you want your delay to also be sent to a reverb. That might sound complicated. So say I have a piano that's got some reverb on it, and that's sounding nice, and I'm also sending it to a delay, but the delay sounds totally dry. Like it's still making the delay and it's bouncing back and forth and whatever, but as it lasts longer, it doesn't feel spacious anymore. It doesn't feel like it has reverb on it. I might want to send that delay to the same reverb that I'm sending the real piano to, so that both the piano and the delay have the same reverb and they all mesh together. Effects channels and buses are slightly different. Effects channels, as I say effects right here, and the bus has this little symbol right here. Effects channels don't have sends on them. They're usually just for effects and nothing else. But if you needed to send this to somewhere else, you'd have to make it a bus, because the bus can also have a send on it. So now I'm sending to this bus, and the bus is sending to an effects channel. So that's like a lot of signal flow, a lot of copies being made going different places. If that's confusing, watch this over again. Think about it for a little bit. Try it on your own in a session. Try to create these buses. Just play around. You don't need to save that. You just experiment and try things. We are going to start doing this when we mix our song very shortly, but just experiment for now and see if you can understand the way the signal flow works. The more that you can understand that, the cooler stuff you're going to be able to do, because you're going to have ideas about how to combine buses and sends and effects channels and everything in all sorts of different ways and create interesting ways to control the sound. The last thing I wanted to mention that I didn't mention before is that I'm not saying that you should have just one reverb for the whole song. That would be kind of boring. I might have, say, let's say between 2 and 5 reverbs, all set up on effects channels with different kinds of reverb depending on what I need. I'm not just going to create them randomly. I'm going to create them for what I need. But that means that maybe 5 of the tracks are being sent to one reverb, 3 are being sent to a different one, a couple don't have any reverb, and then 1 has a special reverb or something like that. So you still have certain groups of instruments going to one reverb, which makes them sound like they're in the same space. Maybe have some other instruments with a different, shorter reverb, because they might be a really fast sound or something like that that needs a short reverb on it. And then you have some that don't have reverb and whatever. So you can still have many kinds of reverb. It's just that you don't put them on the channels. You put them on the buses, on the effects channels, and you send to them. Just in case you want to reuse that reverb for a different track, a different sound, you can, instead of having to copy it over. This benefit is that you don't have to have a reverb on every single channel in your mix, because that's hard on your computer to try to calculate all that stuff. It's better to have them on these sends, and you can pick and choose exactly which one you want for which track and how much, and if you want to pan it and post fader and pre-fader and all that. So I realize this can be confusing, but what it takes is experimenting. It takes trying it yourself. Watch the video again if you need to, and just try it out. Like I say, don't worry about saving your session. Just experiment and then close the session without saving and reopen it new, or push revert or whatever you want. Just try it out and see what you can accomplish with it, because we're going to be using this in our mixing when we come up. You don't have to do things that are as crazy as I'm doing right here, where you have sends and sends and sends and sends or whatever. You can just do basic ones, sending to a reverb, sending to a delay. That's totally fine. I just wanted to show you what's possible and the ways of thinking that you might use to achieve certain effects if you want to do more advanced stuff. So think about that for a while and experiment. I'll see you in the next one.